Kiara, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the absolute systemic shifts currently redefining the cultural and political fabric of New Zealand. If you've been watching The Beehive lately, you know we're witnessing a massive, fundamental reorganization of how the state actually operates under the current coalition government. We're going to break down the policies, the pushback, and those profound sociological ripples moving across Aotearoa. So let's start with a rather provocative reaction to these recent government moves. Take a look at this quote from the spinoff. "Thanks to Nicola Willis and Brian Roach, I now get that I'm just human capital." Wow, right? That really captures a growing sentiment among critics. With these sweeping cuts to the public sector, a lot of people are asking if the long-held dream of Kiwi egalitarianism, the idea of the Kiwi battler in a classless society, is rapidly becoming, well, a fairy tale. When citizens and workers start feeling reduced to mere human capital on a balance sheet, it definitely signals some deep friction between government policy and our national identity. Now, to really grasp the sheer magnitude of these changes, we've got to first establish the traditional baseline of New Zealand society. Historically, this nation has been deeply rooted in collective care and interconnected communities. A perfect encapsulation of this is the Maori concept of wānanga. It's basically the idea that we are bound together by shared experiences, mutual obligations, and a profound sense of kinship. This collective mindset, it's literally been the bedrock of the country's welfare state and social safety net for decades. All right, Section 1, shrinking the state. The primary catalyst for this cultural shift is the coalition government's sweeping mandate to downsize. We're talking about a strict fiscal correction designed to eliminate roughly 14% of the core public service by mid-2029. To put that into perspective, that means around 9,000 jobs are being cut. These cuts primarily target administrative, policy, and back-office roles, which are heavily concentrated in Wellington. That leaves a core of approximately 54,700 remaining jobs. The financial motivation driving these cuts is absolutely immense. Led by Finance Minister Nicola Willis, the government is targeting a massive $2.4 billion in savings. Their argument is pretty straightforward, actually. They argue that the public sector grew unsustainably under the previous administration, and this downsizing is just a necessary step to return a bloated workforce back to a historically sustainable baseline of exactly 1% of the population. It's framed as a strict measure of fiscal responsibility. But, you might be wondering, how exactly does a significantly smaller state apparatus manage the exact same workload? Which brings us to Section 2, the pivot to AI. Here is where we look at the government's major technological gamble, using artificial intelligence to fill that void. And look, this isn't just about upgrading some software. We're talking about fundamentally replacing human administrative power with machine processing. But this raises some profound questions about replacing human judgment, especially in sensitive social services. Think about it. When dealing with complex welfare needs or child protection, can an algorithm actually have empathy? The government essentially envisions AI functioning within the state in three key ways. First up, predictive models will forecast localized demands, things like healthcare spikes or transport maintenance, using historical data. Second, they want to create a digital front door to streamline how citizens interact with the government for taxes, visas, or entitlements. And third, AI will act as an administrative exoskeleton, basically empowering a leaner workforce to maintain or even increase their operational output. It's a vision of ultimate efficiency. On a flip side, critics are sounding a massive alarm regarding severe ethical and privacy risks. Rolling out AI is definitely not without peril. For starters, there's the danger of shadow AI, where public servants might end up using unauthorized consumer-grade tools that could leak sensitive citizen data offshore. Then there's that glaring lack of human empathy required in complex social dispute resolutions that we just talked about. And critically, there is immense friction with Titiriri o Waitangi. Digital data concerning Maori people and culture is considered a tonga, or a treasured possession. Feeding this into generic, foreign-owned AI models threatens to strip away Maori data sovereignty and could even amplify systemic biases. Moving on to Section 3, rewriting the rulebook. Beyond just workforce cuts and tech integration, the state is actively reducing its influence over the private sector. The legislative vehicle driving this is the recently enacted Regulatory Standards Act 2025. This act demands strict economic justification for literally any new government rules. It establishes core principles for responsible regulation, requires agencies to produce consistency accountability statements to flag any deviations, and creates an independent regulatory standards board to oversee the whole shebang. Make no mistake, this is a massive structural shift toward deregulation. Objectively speaking, this legislation represents a really stark ideological divide in New Zealand politics. The government, and particularly Regulation Minister David Seymour, frames this as a necessary removal of the twisted spaghetti of red tape that strangles business and innovation. On the other side of the aisle, the labor opposition argues this is a dangerous abdication of public protection. They claim it prioritizes corporate interests and lobbying over essential safeguards for public health, workers, and the environment. It is a very clear clash of political philosophies. Which leads us perfectly into Section 4, shifting the national DNA. Let's zoom out for a second and look at the sociological ripples of these combined policies. We can actually view the dismantling of the traditional welfare state through the fascinating scientific lens of entropy. Now, in physics, entropy is a measure of energy dispersal and systemic reorganization, and we are arguably seeing a sort of societal entropy right here. A highly structured, centralized, ordered system of government support is fragmenting into dispersed, highly individualized components. The energy of the state is dissipating outward, essentially leaving individuals to navigate the system on their own. So, why does that matter? Well, because as sociological analysis notes, culture is the mass synchronization of framings. Our culture and our societal rules are dictated by shared mental models. When a government drastically alters how it interacts with its citizens by reducing touch points, automating services, or cutting safety nets, those internal synchronized framings of the population inevitably shift to match the new reality. We are literally witnessing a historic transition in real time. The old framing of New Zealand, one built on collectivism, Wānanga, and a strong active welfare state safety net, is being replaced. The new synchronized framing, being implemented by the coalition, leans heavily into right libertarian individualism, free markets, and what we might call transactional citizenship. Under this model, the state is no longer an active social engineer. It's simply a provider of basic infrastructure, and citizens are viewed primarily as individual taxpayers and consumers. As this new, leaner political ideology takes hold across the country, it leaves us with one undeniable question to ponder. If the traditional egalitarian dream of collective care fades into a transactional reality driven by AI and deregulation, what does it truly mean to be New Zealand in the 21st century? It's a fundamental debate that is for sure going to define the nation's future. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer today, Matewa, and I'll catch you next time.